is the Stagger Podcast.
Those guys are idiots.
Welcome into the Stagger Podcast. What is up? I am JD Smith.
Getting ready for Daytona. My name is Derrick Smith. How are you today?
I think everybody's doing just fine, brother, because Daytona 500 weekend is upon us, and we have got plenty to talk about today. You are on the phone today, and that is all right, but if people are wondering why the audio is like that, that's what we're doing. It's all right. It's all good. But we got a lot to get to today. We're going to talk about our fantasy racing preview for the NASCAR season. We're going to do that with the guys from the Trickle Racing League, which is what you and I are in, as our fantasy league. Season-long fantasy. So this is going to be another kind of like just giving you some tips and pointers and thoughts on what to do when it comes to daily fantasy stuff.
Wait. You're going to get tips from the Dick guys? Oh, this would be fun.
Just the tips.
Just the tips.
Just the tips. That's
okay.
right. We're going to do all that.
From the Dick Trickle Racing
Tons
guys.
of just the tips from the fantasy league. A lot going on there. We are also going to give you some sample lineups for this Daytona 500, and we'll talk about some predictions for the season. We will talk about, some of the other things that go into the Daytona 500. It's here, buddy. But I thought before we start off, before we go any further, let's talk about some memories from Daytona, because obviously that's the great American race. Everybody gets excited for this thing, and I have talked about this on the podcast before. I'll say it again. I am not the biggest fan of the current package at the super speedways. I'm not a big fan of what they call the big blade and the small motor. I'd rather it be the other way around. Big motor, small blade, let it be loose, let it be crazy, and make it a little tougher to drive. But that said, the Daytona 500 is always going to be special, and this week will be no different, my friend.
It's not the size of the blade, it's the horsepower in the engine. Is that what they say? Something like that.
I don't think they say that. But if they lowered that spoiler on the rear deck lid, I'd be a little happier. But either way, you're going to see...
Just take it off, man.
You're going to see...
Take it off. You don't need to spoil it back there.
That's right. You're going to see 40 cars lined up in a freight train for 3 hours, which is going to be fun. I mean, it's people like that. I like, some of the other strategic aspects of racing, but those will be there too. This is going to be fun.
You just don't like to have fun watching Daytona 500. You just like to sit there and go, "Oh, I don't like it."
No,
it's not true racing.
No. It's not about that.
Racing.
I'll tell you this, man, honestly, and if people are fans of a certain driver, whatever driver you root for, I think it changes your perspective. Whereas if you're just rooting for one guy like you are a huge Bubba Wallace fan. Bubba's, got a big deal here, right? And this is a big chance for him. Mm-hmm. Bubba Wallace, though, all it takes is one guy to just do one thing, one moment, one little whoop, and then it can wipe out 10 cars in front of him and knock him out, and it's just, that's the thing that's always the worry if you're a fan. But as far as just watching it without that, it's exciting. There's nerves. It's constant adrenaline. So yeah, man, it's going to be an exciting day at the track.
And that's why I think we need to introduce to the Stagger Nation the concept of the side hustle or the side squeeze, however you want to call it. You have to have a driver on the side that you follow as well, because in races like this, you could have your favorite driver. I mean, how many times did Dale Earnhardt Sr. fans have a strong car and thought their guy, it was this year, it was going to be his time, and for him to end up on his lid or have a seagull hit his grill or something? And I mean, there's all these opportunities for failure that maybe aren't even of your own doing. So I've always been a big proponent of having that backup driver that you kind of have a following for and a fandom of. And
I agree with you on that.
That's a great way to watch super speedway racing, I think.
So your guy this year that you were rooting for, and every year going forward, I presume, will be Bubba Wallace. Do you have a side driver that you're going to be rooting for this year, and not just Daytona but everywhere? You have a second driver that you're rooting for? Who's that?
Oh yeah, Bowman the Showman.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
Alex Bowman.
Bowman for sure. Got a lot to do here, and this is going to be a big deal for him. But there was speed in that car. Obviously, there's engine issues with that car. We're going to have to find out a little bit more about that. But that car, assuming no matter what they do with it, if they fix that engine, put a new one in it, either way, it's a great American race. They're going to be stacked up 40 deep, second apart. He'll be fine as long as he can stay with the draft. So,
well, see, and the thing is, we only have a certain amount of time for this podcast, but there was once a time in my life where I could sit here and say every driver in the field was pretty much my my side squeeze, but Greg Biffle. That was the only person I did not like for whatever reason. I
Yeah.
don't know why. I never met him. I'm sure he's a nice guy.
Well, most people haven't met their favorite NASCAR drivers, or least favorite, for what it's worth. I mean,
Yeah.
that makes you like a normal person, which is not
Yeah.
what you are, because you are someone who has
No.
met like half the guys in this field. So
I mean, if you just walk around, you'll bump into him.
no,
eventually,
you
especially
will
behind.
bump into them, not most people. Most people do not just bump into their favorite drivers like you do.
Okay.
So
Well, maybe I need to do a seminar then. We'll do the Stagger seminar, how to find your superstar racers, and I'll tell you all about where to find AJ Foyt and Mario Andretti.
yeah, sure, that's great. That'll be fine. We'll just let you
There'll
go.
be a
This is
cease and desist order. I won't be allowed in any paddock ever since. So.
yeah. We don't need that. So
But real quick, I do want to say though this: if you do want to enjoy, I'm being all serious. Find your favorite driver. Pick a driver that's, so say if you like a mid-tier guy, or an up-and-comer, or a very established guy like Kevin Harvick. Find yourself the opposite, an up-and-comer, a mid-pack person that gives you something to pull for, and then pick your lovable back end. I would say lovable loser, but back end driver. That for me, it's so I have Bubba Wallace, Alex Bowman, and I would say Quinn Houff. I always keep tabs on old Quinn Houff and see how
Yeah.
he's doing. If he gets a 29th place finish, I'm like, hey, look at that. He's jumped 10 spots. Look at that. Something
Yeah.
must have happened.
that would feel
I'm
good for
always-
him. He obviously was not running well in the duels, but you know what? That's a lot of work to do
get
there.
To the 500, yeah.
Yeah, they're just trying to get
the
there
race.
safe and not worry about getting wrecked. So, I'm gonna say boat. I mean, my driver that I root for is Tyler Reddick in the as I'm calling it this year when he has that Cheddar's paint scheme. I am calling that car the Croissant Rocket. That's what we're calling that because it has the little buttered croissants all over it, and that's my favorite paint scheme I think of any car, just because it makes me hungry. I like the Cheddar's people. I've been to their restaurants; they're great. But Tyler Reddick though is my guy. But I'll tell you a guy that I'm rooting for in this race, and I'm really pulling for. And actually, I put a little money on this guy too. I am really excited about that Trackhouse team. And I love the fact that Daniel Suarez is, in that ride. I think it's a very cool thing. I like Justin Marks, what he's doing. He's a really a road racer guy. I'll never forget watching him at Mid-Ohio back in 2017 or 2018. It rained in the Xfinity race that was there, and he drove the 42 car for Chip Ganassi to a victory, and it was fantastic. I don't think the average speed was much above 50 miles an hour, but it was a fun race. Anyway, Justin Marks, my guy. Trackhouse.
Yeah.
That's my I'm pulling for you guys to have a good year and to do something and shock the world. And man, Daniel Suarez, if he won the Daytona 500, it would make me a lot of money. I'm not going to lie, because I put a little money on it. But the point is,
you drove to Indiana to do that, didn't you?
I did go to a state where it's legal, and I put a legal wager on a legal driver, and that is what I'm here for. Is yes, I'm all about it. So. But I'm just saying, that is you're right. It's fun to have more than one driver in this thing because you don't know what the hell's going to happen. It's always mayhem. So it's good to have a couple drivers here, not get too locked in on one guy. And if their day goes up in smoke, then you're just mad.
You turn the TV off in anger.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I like fantasy NASCAR too, because you have four guys, at least in our league, that you get to watch, and it makes it interesting. But I do have to say though, it would be kind of funny. I just think of the part owner of Trackhouse Pitbull. And how if Daniel Suarez was to win this race, you'd have the same four letters with, the iconic meaning of Daytona. You got Dale, and then you got Dale.
Right. Yes, that's exactly right. Dale is synonymous with both Dales, Dale Earnhardt Sr. and Jr. And Dale Jr. or Dale Jarrett too, for that matter. A lot of good Dales.
Jarrett.
Yeah,
Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Is that the four horsemen of Dale? Dale is Dale Earnhardt Sr. and Jr., Dale Jarrett, and now Dale if the Trackhouse guys win it. That'd be great. All right, so plenty of things left to talk about with this race. I guess before we go much further about breaking down what's going to happen, let's talk about some of our favorite Daytona 500 memories, because I know you have one. Where would your favorite Daytona 500? Which one would you say that was if you had to pick one?
Oh, if I had to pick one, I would say it would be the 2014 Daytona 500. Dale Earnhardt Jr. wins the race, and I to be quite honest, I didn't grow up a Dale Earnhardt Sr. fan. You would know that. You grew up with me. But ever since his dad passed, that Junior's always had a soft spot in my heart, and I've always wanted to see him succeed. I know he had some rough times at DEI and at the beginning of Hendrick. So when he got in that 88 car with Nationwide on his side, it just was really cool to see him hook up with Steve Letarte. They come out the gate, they win, and just his celebration, his joy. Because when he won in 04, it was his victory, but it was also 3 years after his dad passed away. So it's kind of like, hey, it's your dad's legacy and this and that, you're continuing on. And then a decade later, he gets a chance to just, enjoy it and say, yeah, I am Dale Earnhardt Jr. I carry my dad's name, but I'm also a 2-time Daytona 500 champion. And he celebrated like it. And it was just, it was really cool to see. I just enjoyed it. And also, too, I look back fondly on the mid-2010s. I mean, it was a different time. It was a different, life seemed to be simpler back then, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. No, I agree with you on that. Here's a little audio of Dale Jr. This is him getting out of the car. He's just giving a hug to Mr. Hendrick,
Dale,
and here he's getting interviewed.
Daytona 500 win take on even greater significance considering the journey you've traveled over the past 6 years.
Yeah, I think so. Man, this winning this race is the greatest feeling that you can feel in this sport. And aside from obviously accepting the trophy for the championship, I didn't know if I'd ever get a chance to feel that again, and it feels just as good, if not better than the first, because of how hard we tried year after year after year, running second all them years, wondering why and what we needed to do. And I got to get my head together. I got to thank National Guard, Diet Mountain Dew, all our sponsors, Kelly Blue Book, Chevy and Sprint, and my team. This race car was awesome. We showed them there all night long how good a car we had, and it's because these guys right here putting it together in the shop, man. That thing would do anything. We could fight off battles after battles, and we got a little help at the end from Jeff to get away on that restart and just sort of try to take care of it from there. It was, this is amazing. I can't believe this is happening. I'll never take this for granted, man, because this just doesn't happen twice, let alone once. So just real thankful. Thanks to all my fans out there for supporting us. We pretty much might be in the chase. Ain't got to worry about that. Get that off our chest, and we're 2-time Daytona 500 champion.
There you go. That is Dale Jr., a very exuberant Dale Jr., and you can just tell.
Dale Jr.
Yeah, he was just trying to compose his thoughts there, you could tell. But I think something fun about that, too, is, Dale Earnhardt Sr., obviously, and Jeff Gordon had so many great battles over the years, and they had such a big rivalry on the track, off the track. From all accounts, they were pretty good friends. They had a friendly rivalry, but certainly they knew the other one was kind of the one standing in the other's way of getting a championship, right? Both those guys had a mutual respect for each other. So very cool that later in obviously everybody's existence there, that Dale Earnhardt Jr. gets a push from Jeff Gordon at a track where his dad, won only one time. And as far as winning the Daytona 500, the guy who pushed Dale Jr. to his second win was his dad's greatest rival. That's kind of cool. I think that's a fun moment from that 2014 race. So.
Oh yeah. And it's funny how our mind plays tricks on us. I just have associated Dale Jr. at Hendrick after the, car of tomorrow, or not the car of tomorrow, but that early phase of his time at Hendrick, and then the rebranding. I'm like, oh yeah, Nationwide, National Guard. That was way off. Samsonite, way off. Yeah.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
Yeah.
Now,
it doesn't take away from the memory for sure.
No, another Dale, of course, was the famous Dale Jarrett win in 1993. That was when he first won the Daytona 500. He obviously won it twice, but this is when he was driving for Joe Gibbs in the Interstate Batteries number 18, I believe, was still the 18 back then, right? The lime green, of course, still very popular today, with old Kyle Busch driving it. But here's the best part of this for me is that you get to hear Ned Jarrett, his dad, legendary driver in his own right, Hall of Fame driver, and of course great broadcaster, calling this race with Ken Squire there. So here's a little audio from that. This is him on the final lap where Dale Jarrett is battling who else but Dale Earnhardt Sr.
One gets into it. This is the finish.
Did we say 5 cars had a shot at it? Get ready, because it's coming to the wire. There's Jarrett in front.
Jarrett pulling back in front. Bodine comes down to the inside. Jeff Bodine, the 86 champion, trying to find some room.
Come on, Dale. Go, baby, go. All right, come on. I know he's got it to the floorboard. He can't do any more. Come on. Take him to the inside. Don't let him get on the inside of you coming around this turn. Here he comes, Earnhardt. It's the Dale and Dale show. It's become off of turn 4. You know who I'm pulling for. It's Dale Jarrett. Bring her to the inside, Dale. Don't let him get down there. He's going to make it. Dale Jarrett's going to win the Daytona 500. All right. Oh, look at Martha. Oh, dear. Oh, can you believe it? Way to go.
Hey.
Man. Did you teach him to drive that race car?
That's one of my favorites, where Martha is Dale Jarrett's mother, Ned's wife, obviously. She would sit in a van. She wouldn't even watch the races. She would get so nervous. So she was sitting in a van just waiting to hear the result. And, of course, they had a TV camera on her because, well, they know how to create some drama, right, back in the day. But that was great. And I love how Ken Squire, doing his job, right? He's trying to jump in and call the finish of the Daytona 500. And Ned Jarrett was like, nope. That's my boy out there running for a Daytona 500. I'm going to call the flag as it drops. And he nailed it. So that's the Dale and Dale show, one of the all-time calls in NASCAR history with old Ned Jarrett. And made that pretty great. I get chills every time I hear it. So, yeah,
absolutely.
That's a beautiful memory there.
He's one of my favorite broadcasters. We've had a broadcaster episode. Yes. He's one of my favorites, and underrated. I mean, a lot of people look past him, just because he's a driver, but he's also Dale Jr.'s Dale Jarrett's dad. Yeah, and but yeah, if it wasn't for him, that you wouldn't have memories like that. And I mean, he is a voice of our childhood for a lot of people in their 30s and 40s. He's the guy that when you turn on the race, you heard him. If you turn on the radio, you heard Barney Hall. Yeah, that's just the voices that you heard. And glad he's been a part of our sport. And I've always remembered that 93 race for sure.
Yeah. That was, and of course, Dale Earnhardt Sr. You can't have Daytona 500 practically in that era without Dale Earnhardt Sr. being a factor in it. That was the 93 race. Jeff Gordon was also right behind in hot pursuit in that race too. Very young Jeff Gordon in that one. So yeah,
very mustachioed.
Yeah, very mustachioed and a little bit of a business mullet, shall we say? Even more business in the front than usual, but a little bit hanging out the back, just for good measure. The sprint car was strong in him back in those days. Now, speaking of Dale Earnhardt, this is the '97 Daytona 500. We'll give you one more memory from this little audio to play. So in this race, Jeff Gordon actually won this race, and if you've watched that Refuse to Lose documentary that I think Fox Sports 1 produced and aired, Ray Evernham paid for a crew to follow them around, and they actually won this race, and did Jeff Gordon. And so you get a lot of good behind-the-scenes stuff. Ray Evernham talks about how they try to cheat the template system. It's fantastic. If you've not watched that, it'll be running sometime this week. Go find it. This weekend even, I'm sure you can see it. You'll be able to find it easily. But in that documentary, I was reminded, because I was watching that this week, reminded of a great clip from Dale Earnhardt Sr. So he wrecks out of this race on the 3 laps to go, 2 laps to go. They're coming off turn 2. He and Jeff Gordon are, near side by side, and Earnhardt gets up a little too close to the wall, and Jeff Gordon goes by him. And Earnhardt flips over on the backstretch, doesn't get hit by anybody, and skids to a stop after rolling a couple times in the grass, kind of near turn 3 at the backstretch coming into turn 3. Almost right at that same spot where the Allisons and Cale Yarborough had their fight. It's like right about there is where he lands. So this is audio that I remember watching live, and I think you remember this. Like our dad used to say that, this line about the ambulance that Dale Earnhardt give. It still sticks in my head, but here is the original audio of this, and this will forever be burned in my memory. I will be 100 years old if I live that long. I will hear this and instantly remember where it was from. But here's Dale Earnhardt talking about what happened, where he got out of the car, saw that it was drivable, and then got back in it and drove it around, and they finished the race in a very badly damaged race car. Here's Dale Earnhardt Sr.
Gordon came up under me, and the car pushed off the corner, and I got into the wall, got back in him, checked up a little bit. Somebody hit me from behind. Next thing I know, we're on the roof again. Luckily, no one else hit the car. We just sort of bounced around up on our lid a little bit and scuffed around, tore the back end up, whatever. I got an ambulance, and I looked back at the car, and I said, man, the wheels are still on that thing. I got out of the ambulance and asked the guy inside the car that was hooking it up. I said, see if it'll crank. And he cranked it up. I said, get out. Give me the car back. So I drove it back around here, and we taped it up. And it's just, it's frustrating for me, for the guys that work so hard. Everybody worked so hard on the team, and getting these race cars down here, we run good and qualified good, won the qualifying race. I don't know that we could have won the Daytona 500, but we were sitting there ready for a shot. And I think Gordon was a little impatient at that point, but still, he went on and won the race. He's running his race. But, that's the way it goes. I mean, I pushed off the corner and got in the wall a little, and I could have took him out too, but I was trying to stay off him, got back, and somebody turned me from the back, and then it was all over with.
There you go. That is the Intimidator himself. But that line about I got into the ambulance, saw a crank thing had wheels on it, got out of the ambulance. Go look up that car if you don't remember it, because I promise you, this car was not drivable. Like, there's no way they should have let him get out there.
Wrench that day.
It needed everything. They had to literally wrap tape around the entire back of that thing to keep the deck lid on it. I mean, NASCAR has since instituted rules that say you can't drive cars like this. I mean, when a car rolls over, it's pretty much that's it. Like, you're not allowed to drive it around, but they didn't have that rule back then, and I don't know how they let someone get in a car that had rolled over. Structurally, it could not have been very integral, but whatever. It was still there.
Would you want to tell Dale Earnhardt Sr. to sit out?
No, I'm sure no one did. And yeah, so he did, though. He drove it out of the grass, drove it around. They taped up the back of it, and he finished the race. So it was quite the day. And of course, we can't go much more in this preview without bringing it up. It's not a pleasant memory, of course, but it is 20 years to the day, or not to the day, 20 years of the race. The date will be, I think, February 18th, but that is when we lost Dale Earnhardt Sr. That was in 2001. It's obviously 2021, so it's been 20 years since that occurred. I don't know, man. We haven't talked much about this because obviously we're brothers. We grew up together. I don't remember we were not watching the race together because I went and watched it with some buddies of mine. I went and watched it with my buddy Jesse, my buddy Jared, my buddy Brian. We were seniors in high school when this happened. And so I went to their house and watched this race with a few other friends of ours from our class. And then I remember our family, like I came back to the house and then we all went out to see Grandma. Yeah. And so,
Grandpa.
Yeah.
Grandma. Yeah. Because Grandpa passed away on February 5th of that year.
Yeah.
So,
he had just passed. We had just lost our grandfather a couple weeks before that. So this was a little bit of a weird time, but what do you remember about, what do you remember about that particular time period in life? Like, as far as watching that?
Yeah. I remember when the wreck happened, we just thought it was any other wreck. My dad was pretty pumped to see Michael Waltrip get the victory, and he thought that was pretty cool, and I thought that was pretty cool, and we didn't really think anything of it. I think we turned the TV off, and I don't know the logistics of whether we met you out there, we picked you up. I don't know what the deal was, but I just remember watching the wreck going, wow, Mikey won. That's cool. Oh, let's go out to
and we did the same thing where we were watching. We flipped the TV off and we were like, that's it. All right. That was a fun race. And we didn't even think about it because you're right. It did not look that bad at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it wasn't that bad. It's a wreck you've seen 1,000 times. If you watch Rusty Wallace wreck on a super speedway and flip over and you thought he's dead and you're like, well, surely Earnhardt's fine. Yeah. Not that bad of a deal. So then you get out there and, death's kind of fresh on our minds because we're, seeing all of our stuff that our grandpa had and we're packing up stuff. And then, next thing you know, you see Mike Helton on the TV going, oh, it's the toughest thing I've had to say, but we lost Dale Earnhardt. And like right there, we're just like, wait, what? No, like my dad liked to make fun of him and Jeff Gordon because he was a Bill Elliott fan.
Yeah.
Wait. Dale Earnhart just died? Seriously?
It was for people who who don't remember it because maybe you weren't old enough to remember it or you just, weren't paying attention to NASCAR back then or whatever it is. Like, I mean, it was like time stopped. I don't even know how to put that into words for people, but I mean, you just watched Tom Brady win his 7th Super Bowl, right? Imagine watching Tom Brady next, God forbid, I'm not wishing this obviously, but imagine watching a big game next year, Monday Night Football or something. Tom Brady gets hit so hard they have to take him out. Right, they take him out of the game in a stretcher, and you think, wow, he must have got hit really hard. Gee, I hope he's probably got a concussion. And then they take him to the hospital, and then a few hours after the game ends, you find out that like a legend like that died. Like it just. I don't know if people can even fully comprehend that unless you lived through that because it was so bizarre, bizarre. And we'll talk more about this in a few weeks here because I think the sport really had a major crossroads in 2001 that they had to go through. And, they did. And they found a way through it. And that is a testament to everyone there at DEI, Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, his race team that had Michael Waltrip's car, had Steve Park's car, and of course had Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s car. You know, RCR, Richard Childress Racing, they obviously had a part to play in that too. And that's the next week after that race was when Kevin Harvick started in the 29 car, the white 29 Goodwrench car, not the black number 3. It was a very weird day at Rockingham Speedway. So that moment though, you're right. Like I just remember we were all sitting on the couch just looking at each other like, what do we do with this information? We know how to process it. So it was, and I know that no one really did. NASCAR, of course, made some safety requirements after that. In the coming season, I think they didn't do it right away, but within that year, they had instituted no more open-faced helmets. They had full-face coverings. That was something that they believe was attributable to the death of Dale Earnhardt, and of course, they also instituted the Hans device, which, sad to say, I mean, if NASCAR had jumped on that when it was being asked for by certain people around the motorsports safety community, if that's even a thing, they were telling NASCAR you should do this. Now.
It is now. The motorsport safety community, it is now. I mean, you and I both know drivers. I know one local driver that her family was very adamant, like, hey, you're not getting in the car without this Hans device. You're not getting in the car without a great helmet and, great fire suit and safety equipment. Like, that was like, you might need to race a second race or a third race on a right rear tire that probably should be replaced. That's okay, but we're going to make sure you're safe and sound as far as safety equipment goes in your car. Like that's, and for those that don't know sprint car racing, you can have a right rear for 2 or 3 races, especially if you don't make an A main, and it can last a little longer. It's not going to give you the speed, but it's not going to be a safety hazard. Yeah. But just, those are the things where, like, if you're trying to just show up and run every weekend and get some seat time, drivers do that all the time. And you see some drivers that, just get by with what the minimum that they have to do. Well, and some drivers invest in that safety equipment, and it's because of seeing people pass away in the sport we love, and we don't want to see. Well, and
that's the thing I will say. Sadly, right, a lot of times safety precautions are made in racing after something happens, not before. And that's why I'll give credit to both IndyCar and F1, where they both went out and did the aero screen, or in F1 the halo, where they said we have to do this before we have any more further tragic loss of life. And they believe that's what saved Romain Grosjean's life. He might have very well not survived that wreck that he had in, was that Bahrain? That was where he wrecked, right?
Yeah.
Because of the halos. So, I mean, this is the advancement in racing that has to happen, and it's good that we're doing that. So.
Oh, yeah, he would, I mean, it'd have been a gruesome, I wouldn't describe what happened.
Well, I know, yeah.
That halo stopped him from death, for sure.
Yeah. The other thing that is notable about that wreck, because if you notice, like, when you watch that wreck, his car barely looks. You think his car? We talked about that wreck where Dale Earnhardt drove it away after it was all ripped to shreds. That was because it flipped over. But the bad thing was in that wreck was it wasn't ripped to shreds. It almost looked like you could have taped the hood back down and drove it around, right? And that was a fatal impact that happened in that wreck. One of the reasons they believe that also happened after they studied it a little further was that those cars were not very crushable. Tony Stewart was a big proponent of that when he came into the sport. And said, we have got to make these cars less tank-like. A lot of these, owners wanted the cars to be very sturdy. The drivers wanted them to be very sturdy because they didn't want to have, they run into someone at Martinsville, and instead of, just taping up a fender back on it and getting back out there and run for points all day, now you've got half the front clip needs to be replaced because it all crushed in. But the car's crushing in like that absorbs energy and shoots it around the driver as opposed to making it go through the driver. So that is something that Tony Stewart was a big proponent of. Other drivers became proponent of too. And now that's why you see these bodies with these cars. I mean, when they get into a wreck, they are obviously, a lot of them are made of carbon fiber now, and there's all kinds of other things that go into it, but they made the front and back clips much more crushable and compactable, and they really changed the way that the energy travels around the car in a wreck. So, yeah, a lot of good safety precautions came out of this. So, unfortunately, it should have never happened that we lost a legend of the sport, but that is the way it went. So, there you go.
It is, man, and it's the tough part about it, but we've learned a lot from it, and we just, you just hope that we don't have to deal with this anymore as far as no more deaths in motorsports. That's a lofty goal to have, but hopefully it's an attainable goal.
We hope so. Absolutely. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk some daily fantasy and give you our predictions for the year, and then we'll talk to the Dick Trickle Racing guys as well about fantasy racing. You're listening to the Stagger Podcast. Welcome back to the Stagger Podcast. All right, so let's talk Daytona 500. Well, before we do that, we never did our predictions on our NASCAR preview episode, which is still up if you haven't listened to it yet and you want to get caught up on some of the other things going on in NASCAR for the entire season. We have a Cup Series preview. We also have our Xfinity and Truck Series preview. Those are all out now. You can find them wherever you found this podcast. Just go look for the previous 2 episodes to this one, and you'll be able to listen to them. But let's make a few predictions. Let's talk about our final 4 drivers we think are going to make it to Phoenix and be there for the championship, and then let's crown our champions ahead of time. You ready to do that?
Oh yeah, ready to do that.
So do you want to go first or me? I don't care. However you want to do it.
You can go first.
All right. Well, I'm going to say this. I do think Denny Hamlin will make it back to the Final 4. I think Gibbs is going to be very strong this year. I'm actually going to pick 2 Gibbs cars to get there because I also think
2.
KFB is going to be back in it. I think Kyle Busch is going to make it into that Final 4. I do think that Kevin Harvick will find his way back in. And I think Chase Elliott is going to be back as well. Because there's a ton of road courses, and all those guys that I just mentioned are really good on the road courses. So I think that's going to factor in. But yeah, I like all 4 of those guys to get back in and be there when it matters. What say you?
I say that I've got some similarities for sure. I've got a Stewart-Haas Ford of Kevin Harvick.
Okay.
I've got a Hendrick Chevrolet of Chase Elliott. I've got a Gibbs Toyota of Denny Hamlin. And I've got a Penske Ford of Ryan Blaney.
Ryan Blaney is a good call there. Yeah. I was thinking about putting him in there. Obviously, the Penske's had, 2 cars in the Final 4 last year, and I didn't put any of them in this year. So might be a gross oversight on my part. But yeah, Ryan Blaney's real interesting, man, because he runs really well. It's just getting the finishes. If he gets the finishes this year, yeah, he could definitely be in it for sure. So
I think it's a breakout year for him. I really do. And but that being said, it's going to be his first rodeo, as they say, and he's going to need to lose one before he wins one. And I'm going to go with Kevin Harvick winning the race in Phoenix and winning the championship. That's my prediction.
That's a good one. And that would be quite the capper to his career. Not that he's done, but man, to put one back up there again and get another one now.
One for the old guys.
Yeah.
35. I kind of been pulling for the old guys.
Well,
young guys.
I'll give you that. But I think the guy who's going to get it done is the guy who has been there, done that, and has not as far as winning a championship, but the guy who has been in that position so many times and just has not been able to get it done. I think Denny Hamlin's finally going to win his championship this year. I think you're going to see the FedEx number 11. He is going to be that guy who wins a championship. And then I think he's going to just be in a different mode after winning a championship, because then I think he's going to be looking at, all right, how many do I have to win to attain some milestones? What do I need to do to get a second car for my new team? When do I transition to team owner? Like,
he wins at Gibbs, he's going to be the second car. He's going to be the first car. Bubba's going to be the second car.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right.
Happen.
He's going to transition to the 23, and Bubba's going to be in another car.
You can take this 11 and give me the FedEx sponsorship because I'm taking it with me. Pop, pop, pop. I'll do it again.
We'll see. Yeah, and I'll do it again. Yeah, that'll be very interesting. But yeah, I think Denny's going to be there. Now, let's talk a bit about, speaking of Denny, right? I mean, this is a guy who has now won this race 2 straight years, looking to go 3 straight, and four
time as an owner.
No, stop. 4 overall, right? It would be his 4th overall if he wins it this time.
Yes.
So do you think Denny Hamlin's going to win this race? Well, obviously you can't think that, because if you listen to our NASCAR preview podcast, we already know who you've predicted to win this race. It's not Denny Hamlin. It's not Kevin Harvick. It's not any other plate racers you might think of. Blaney or
not Larson.
No.
Benedetto.
Who'd you pick? Tell everybody who you picked again. Mr. Old stacking pennies over there.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to be stacking a lot more than pennies if it hits, because I'm doing my old trek to a legal state myself. And I'm going to put some money on old Corey LaJoie.
All right.
Winning the Daytona 500. Spire has won at Daytona. His teammate is Jamie McMurray. Corey LaJoie is a really good racer. He finishes well when he doesn't have Ryan Newman on the front of his car. He finishes pretty dang well in the plate track races. He can stay out of trouble. I think, to me, he is a lock to have on your fantasy team because he's $5,800 on DraftKings.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
And yeah, so I think he's a lock to have on there. And he's going to have Jamie Mack, a really good plate racer, as his teammate. That is why I'm picking him.
By the way, yeah, this is
with Hendrick Engines. By the way,
Hendrick Engines and Ganassi chassis, right?
I forget who's on the pole again for the Daytona 500.
Oh, that'd be a Hendrick engine.
Front row. And who's on the front row?
Another Hendrick. Actually, I want to say out of the last 14 Daytona 500s, it's something crazy. Like Hendrick has had a car in the top 2. I want to say out of 13 of them.
So can we? I just want to be a little bit of a Euro snob now. Can we do a front row lockout for Hendrick Motorsports? Is that something we can do? Can we say that?
No.
No?
I guess you can if you want to. That's fine. I don't even know what that means.
Does it count if Alex Bowman has to start at the end of the rear of the field?
I don't. That I also don't know, right? Because I don't know if that's. I don't know if that's going to happen yet. When we're recording this, we don't know exactly where the status of his engine is. So. Yeah, and actually, for full disclosure, we're recording this during the rain delay of the duels, so we know what one of the duels is, but we don't know the other ones. So,
full disclosure, I'm sitting in my Honda Civic in my driveway so that I don't wake up my family.
All right, well, that's kind
of late.
That's a little too much full disclosure. There's a lot of full disclosure going on here. All right, so let's talk about your daily fantasy lineup real quick because you mentioned that Corey LaJoie is going to be in yours. Who do you have as far as your guys that you would be targeting for this race? Which I will remind people, this race, as much as any of them, if you go to a mile-and-a-half track, if you go to a short track, the ringers of the gamblers who get on and do daily fantasy, they've got their lineups, they've got all their Excel spreadsheets. You're going to have a tough day trying to beat those guys. It's very difficult. But Daytona 500, it's a crapshoot. And so if you're ever thinking of, man, I might throw 20 or 30 bucks into DraftKings and go see what's up, this is your weekend to do it, man, because you can find plenty. You can go pick some guys at the bottom. You'll have plenty of room to go get your, star guys, whoever you want. And just know you're pretty much going to be guaranteed to lose whatever you put in because it's going to be a crapshoot. But you might win the ridiculous amount of money if you get lucky. So, but it is all going to be luck. I think it's going to be all luck this weekend. Yeah. But what do you think, man? Who are some guys you're targeting?
Call me crazy because I have a wife, 2 kids, and a puppy. So I'm putting $5 and just having fun on the quarter jukebox game. Right now there's a $15,000 pot. And it's got 71,000 available spots in it. Good luck trying to win this one, but I still have 10 entries in it. But there's only 16,000 people that are in there. So you got 65 hours when we're recording this to jump on in it. But I'm going to go ahead and fill up my lineup right now.
Go ahead.
This is the lineup I'm going to put in there a couple times.
All right.
It's going to be Corey LaJoie going off at 5,800. Driving for Spire Motorsports, we've already talked about it. Daniel Suarez, who in the first duel had a really good showing. In that track house, Dale, let's go. He's at 5,700.
Yeah.
I like to put my guys at the bottom in first, so I know what I'm working with. Right now, I got an average of $9,600 left to play with. So I'm going to look for a big boy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a guy who's got loads of potential, who knows how to drive this place, and who's maybe not starting first. So I'm picking Denny Hamlin. He's top of the pot at 10,400.
Yeah.
I got 3 spots left. What's that?
Yeah, so go ahead. Yeah, I agree with you. So all this makes sense to me so far. I like it.
Yeah. So, and what I like to do is I like to throw in someone who's annoying in the Daytona 500. You have to pick someone you don't like because you know what's going to happen. They're going to be the ones that wins the damn race, right?
Well, you know who that would, I think, be for a lot of people. In my mind, that's someone who's going to have a lot of horsepower and a lot of teammates who can push him to a victory. That'd be that blue deuce is where I'd be going with Penske. That's the one I'm thinking. So annoying. No, is that not where you're going? Where are you going?
No, I'm going with old Silver Spoon Austin Dillon, 8,300 Chevrolet,
right.
baby.
Hey, he's got experience winning plate races, so there you go. He's won this race. Yep. All right, and then what do you got left?
Go with to wrap it up. I've got 2 drivers left. Now, this is where I like to find a good driver that's got loads of potential, that's got a good power behind him, and that's going to make up a lot of spots, okay? So I think that you're looking at a guy Now, you might think I'm crazy with this because I'm averaging $9,000, almost 10 grand left in my budget.
Yeah.
I'm going to choose Eric Jones. And here's why. Because he has the power. He's going to start mid to backpack once this is all said and done.
Yeah.
And he's won at Daytona, and Bubba Wallace has done exceptionally well there.
That 43 car usually has speed in this
Yeah.
race. You're exactly right. Yep.
And you're looking for people that maybe they're not going to pick. You want if you're
Eric Jones is not going to be. I would think he's not going to be the hottest commodity out there right now. Yeah.
No, and I'll have to say too, if you're going to do a fade, I would almost fade. I hate to say it, Bubba Wallace, because a lot of people are going to pick him.
Yeah, this is one of those. You're exactly right. People who don't play the daily fantasy very often, that's something you have to consider is how many other people are going to have a similar lineup to you, right? So if you throw Chase Elliott in there, guess what? Lots of other people are going to have Chase Elliott just because he's popular, right? If you Denny Hamlin, which you put in there, and that's fine. You just have to vary it up and make sure you don't have all the popular picks, right? So if you had Denny Hamlin and Bubba Wallace and Chase Elliott, those are going to be guys that are probably going to be picked quite a bit here. Picking guys that you think are maybe flying a little under the radar, a little undervalued, that's where you want to go. Again, this is all a crapshoot, so you might as well try to vary it.
Totally a crapshoot.
Go have a contrarian lineup for sure. That's what you're talking about a little bit here.
I got one last one to pick.
And you should have all the money in the world. So who are you picking?
Yeah. So what I have a remaining salary of almost $11,000.
You can pick anyone.
I'm going to go with Eric Almirola. He's going off at 8,600. So obviously he just won the first duel here. So he's going to be a popular pick. But if you look down my lineup, I've got Almirola, Austin Dillon, who past champion or past winner of the race. He might get chosen, he might not. Denny Hamlin, Eric Jones, Corey LaJoie, and Daniel Suarez.
Yeah,
I think you're going to find value with Suarez, LaJoie, and Jones.
Man, though you did a good job with that. If you let's just say back out of one of those guys. Who do you feel the least confident in of those cheaper guys? 80 like the Austin Dillon, the Daniel Suarez. Oh, you feel the least confident in him. All right, back out of Eric Jones real quick, and let me know who's available. Who can you get?
Oh, anybody. I've got $1,000 left over, and I can get Chase Elliott still.
Good night. That's pretty good.
I can get Brad Keselowski. So to me,
I would almost go Brad Keselowski there, honestly. But that's either way.
He's going to have Ford power. You know what? I'm going to make that switch right there. You know why? Because you do want to have a couple players in here. So right now, the heavy hitters I have, and I would consider Almirola a heavy hitter at this point. I've got Almirola, Hamlin, Keselowski. I got my flyer and Corey LaJoie, who I think is going to be sneaky good. Yeah. And then I got Daniel Suarez, who's probably going to be a hot pick, but a lot of people might steer clear of him because, hey, he might finish off a lineup here or there. But people are going to say De Benedetto. Like, let's take a look at this. So right now at 6,700, you got Cole Custer, Chase Briscoe, Jamie McMurray's going off at 6,400.
Michael
McDowell, who races good here, 6,300. Austin Cindric, who could be grabbing a lot of headlines, 6,100.
Yeah.
And then you look up a little further, Tyler Reddick's at 7,100. Bubba Wallace is at 7,400. Christopher Bell, who ran strong in the first duel, is at 7,600.
Man,
so there's a lot of people that are going to go for those mid-tier drivers. But I'm sticking strong with LaJoie.
So your strategy is not to go mid-tier. Your strategy is to go low end and then some high end and leave the middle tier for other people. I like that.
And
that's
then
not
pick
bad.
the annoying guy in the middle, and that's where Austin Dillon comes in.
That's right. Absolutely.
We'll see if it works out.
Yeah, I like it. That's pretty interesting. I will tell you this. You mentioned him earlier. So I drove out to Indiana. I put a bet in legally. And my guy to win the Daytona 500, this is, again, I told you I was excited about him. I put just $10 down on what was the number? I'm trying to remind myself. It's I think he's 100-1 to win, and that is Daniel Suarez in the 99 Trackhouse car. So if he does win, that $10 bet's going to pay me $1,000. So just know, if you all are watching that race and you see old number 99 sitting top 5 with 2 to go, just know that where I am losing my mind because
your shirt's off.
Yeah,
you're sweating up a storm.
If Daniel Suarez wins this race, we made. I don't know how we will pull this off because neither of us speak this language fluently. But I think we may have to do the next podcast, the first minute of it in Spanish. We may have to.
We could
in honor of him.
Totally pull that off. We could
I mean,
totally
we both
pull that
took
off.
Spanish, so
Google Translate, dude. We just type it all in.
I will be celebrating that. You have no idea. That will be so awesome. But anyway, yeah, I'm rooting for him. Just even regardless if I didn't put money on him, I'm rooting for him because I think he's kind of, people have kind of dumped on him a little bit over his career, and I like what Trackhouse is doing, so I'm rooting for those guys. So, but that's my flyer pick this week for that. So,
now, who do you think you just want to steer clear of him? This person, you just have a hunch that he's just gonna have a bad day. Who's that one driver?
I don't know why I'm saying this because he's been so successful, but the last few years. But I just feel like Chase Elliott is not going to have a good day. I don't know why.
I'm with you on that, my friend.
Here's the thing: he's got Hendrick Power. He obviously has just won a championship. Life could not be going better for this guy. So I feel like this race is just the one where it just tends to nip guys where everything's going too well. Like obviously it would be a huge achievement for him to win this race, but and I'm sure he's going to be focusing on doing it. But yeah, I just don't have a great feeling about Chase Elliott winning this race. So we'll save this audio for when he does win it, and we can play that back next week. How wrong I was.
Yeah. What's the sound we have in the beginning of our show? What a bunch of morons!
These guys are idiots. Yeah.
These guys are idiots. Yeah. Well, there we go.
It.
We should start putting our bad predictions up there. Like
That's right.
Corey LaJoie winning the Daytona 500. But that's
at least sticking your neck out a little bit. So yeah, I don't think that's wrong. So there you go. That's a little bit of daily fantasy preview for this week, a little bit of gambling preview for this week. We'll take one more break. When we come back, you will hear from the Dick Trickle Racing guys as we preview the rest of the fantasy NASCAR season. You're listening to the Stagger Podcast. Welcome back to the Stagger Podcast. So we have got a couple of guys from the Dick Trickle Racing League that are going to talk about fantasy NASCAR with us because what season are we on now? Commissioner Ori, go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us what season we're on with the Dick Trickle League.
Hey, JD, we are on the 11th season of Dick Trickle Racing, which is no way affiliated with Dick Trickle, but we are here to remember Richard Trickle. And the 11th season, we started in 2011, so we just minutes ago finished up our draft.
Yes, so this is 11 drafts in. I joined in, I think, year 8. I want to say this is my 4th season. Yeah, because I had the start of my 4th season. Drew is with us as well. Drew, what year did you pick up with this, or were you a day one?
I was a day oneer. I was one of the original, what was it, Ori 5?
Yeah, the founding father.
Yeah. Now, what's most important to remember about my placement in this fantasy league is I'm the only 3-time champion. I won the inaugural season, Dick Trickle 1, and Dick Trickle 4, I think, and then Dick Trickle 3, and then Dick Trickle 8.
Yeah.
I think we're my repertoire. So I had good experience with winning in fantasy NASCAR in this particular league.
Yeah, you do. And so this is why I wanted to talk to both of you guys because, I mean, Ori, you started this league in part because you couldn't really find a fantasy league that did what you were looking for, right? Like there's a lot of, the draft style leagues. There's obviously daily fantasy, probably not when you guys started this, but you wanted something where you could kind of control it, and you run all this off the points, just like what NASCAR does for the most part, right?
Yep, we just wanted to do our own thing. There was a lot of weekly out there. ESPN had kind of phased out their fantasy NASCAR at that point in time, and we just wanted to do our own thing and draft guys at the start of the year. There aren't a ton of transactions in our team. It's kind of, the My Guy league where you draft guys at the start of the year and you're going to ride them home. And, maybe you're making some trades throughout the season. But other than that, we kind of wanted to get away from the weekly fantasy where, there's a lot of strategy, obviously, based on the upcoming track.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes it fun. Like you said, just had the draft. I am the defending champion of the league, for what it's worth, since we're talking about our accolades. And Ori, you've won the league, right? So what years did you win?
I'm a Dick Trickle 2 champion and Dick Trickle 6 champion.
All right. So this is a meeting of the minds of all the champions. I mean, really, everybody else is kind of inconsequential. So let's just talk as champions about how this draft went for each of us. So, Ori, to lay out all the teams, let's lay out Ori's first. You had Kevin Harvick, you got Kyle Larson, you got William Byron, Chase Briscoe, which I really like that pick, and Ricky Stenhouse was your final. We start 4 this year, and we have a 5th on the bench. Correct? I'm not mistaken on that?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And Drew, you've got Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, Ross Chastain, and Chris Buescher. My team, for what it's worth, is Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, William Byron as well, Tyler Reddick, and Ross Chastain. So tell me, let's go, Drew, I'll go with you first. Talk about the guys that you ended up picking and maybe just a little bit of what you think of your team right now. Like, how do you feel with Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, Ross Chastain probably as your main 4 you're going to go with? How do you feel about that?
You know, it's interesting. The draft went, you have your kind of your big board as you go through. And looking at my big board as it went along, it was mostly chalk for the big board. So I didn't have a whole lot of guys in our division that were reaching or letting the guy fall pretty far for what I kind of predicted, which I don't really like that, because then I feel like, if somebody's falling, I can try and reach up and snag some value, and that didn't happen here. So, but the second pick, I picked Kyle Busch. Chase Elliott went first overall, and I think there were a lot of people you could take it to. I think I don't want us to have amnesia with Kyle Busch's past history, just thinking about last year. So he's been a dominant force in NASCAR for many years now, and picking him up at 2 felt pretty good to me. And then I took Blaney and Christopher Bell at the next 2 picks. Pick number 9, and I traded up to 11 to take Christopher Bell. Blaney, I think, is a solid pick at the 8 spot or 9 spot where I got him. He's going to be somebody who'll probably win a couple races. He puts up a good number of top 5s. He's got some duds in there too, but I think this league puts a heavy emphasis on winning, and I think he can help kind of lead the team to that. Christopher Bell in much better equipment now. I'm really high on him this year. And then finished up with Chastain and Christopher Buescher. I don't know about Chastain, I'll be honest. Really, really nervous about him. He's got better equipment now. He's performed really well in Xfinity, and I think a lot of people are really optimistic. He's a great personality for NASCAR. But those last 2 picks, if we're starting 4 and I feel good about my top 3, I'll tell you what, I don't feel good about my 4 and 5 drivers. I don't think either of them. I don't see them really competing for a spot in the chase. So I'm going to have to hope that one of them kind of step up or pick up the guy off of waivers or try and make a trade somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, Ross Chastain, though, I think can be good. I have him on my team, too. I'm pretty excited about what he can do. But, yeah, I get what you're saying there. It's a little bit of a risk. Going back to your Kyle Busch thing, one other question on that. So what do you think of Adam Stevens moving on now? There's new crew chief there and all that stuff. I mean, do you think that's going to kind of get Kyle Busch back to where he was? Do you think they'll be able to refocus? Because I think last year he just got killed by not having practice, and he really couldn't. I mean, he was good, but not for his level. He wasn't the guy. So you took him over Harvick and Denny Hamlin. I mean, those are 2 guys that did get it done last year. So, but you're feeling good about that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think last year when he was really struggling, and I think a lot of people said, oh, well, Kyle Busch needs practice to be successful. I think that's sort of a narrow-minded kind of mindset to have, because Busch is a champion. He's won God knows how many races in NASCAR. So, I mean, it's not him not having practice. That's not what he needs. He needs a good team around him to make the car work like he needs it to. And it doesn't take a whole lot of time for him to figure out what it needs to do. And so I think the team was really lacking for him. The new crew chief will be really helpful for him this year. And we'll see what they wind up doing with practice. I think as COVID potentially dies down, they could retweak it a little bit again. I don't think it'll quite be as, restricted as last year, but I'm high on him again. I think he'll get back to his previous form where he was really a pretty dominant force for a number of years there. Yeah. Last year was definitely the anomaly.
I think too, Kyle Busch and oh, go ahead, Ori. Sorry.
I didn't have anything. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking. My bad. Well, what I was going to say is Kyle Busch and Ryan Blaney both are pretty good road course racers too. And obviously this year that's going to be a huge deal because there's so many more. What is there? 7 road course races now, which is it's mile and a half tracks, and then road courses are like almost as important as short tracks. So yeah, it's gonna be a really interesting season. And Ori, you took Chase Briscoe with your 4th pick. Him and William Byron, you have both of those guys. Those are I think William Byron has like 4 top 10s in 8 road course starts. I'll take that. I mean, I think I picked him up too. I think he's a real solid road course guy. And Chase Briscoe obviously was great in Xfinity doing that. So I would think you're going to be in good stead in that sense.
Yeah, I'm really high on Chase Briscoe. I love my rookies in Dick Trickle, trying to grab them late. Not only is Chase Briscoe proven at road courses and at least the Xfinity series, he's also a dirt guy that would hopefully provide good value at the Bristol dirt race. And, stepping in, I hope he can perform better than what Clint Boyer did last year in the 14 car. And then you're talking Willie B. Again, this was a 3rd round pick for me, and hoping to provide upper tier talent on the road courses and just kind of fill the gap at the other racetracks. I know we saw Willie win at a super speedway last year at Daytona at the last regular season race. So, maybe he can throw in some other top 10s there. But, once you get to the 3rd round, it's kind of guys that, you love, but you don't, you're not going to ride to a championship.
I'm
right?
in the same boat. I had him in the 3rd round too. And I I have my misgivings about it, but I also think he's going to be stepping up this year a little bit, because I think that whole organization there with Hendrick, obviously the game's getting raised a little bit. Chase, of course, winning a championship will do that, but also Kyle Larson coming into the fold, and you've got him on your team too. Him and Harvick, man. I mean, if Kyle Larson, like we've talked plenty about all the stuff from last year, and we'll have plenty more to talk about that. But just from an on-track performance standpoint, Harvick and Larson, you could have 2 guys who are in the Final 4. I mean, potentially. Like if Larson is back to driving like he was before all this happened, and now he's in even better equipment, it's all about finishing with him, and it's all about not finishing second when you have the chance to win the race. But assuming that, he carries over any of the stuff he was doing last year at the dirt tracks and everywhere he traveled, you would think he's going to be ready to go and in some really good equipment that by the second half of the season, I would expect to see him winning multiple races.
Yeah, Larson's not a slouch on the road courses either. He's a good road course racer. Obviously, he's a dirt guy. You hope that he can perform at that Bristol dirt and potentially bring home a fantasy win on that track as well. I wasn't shocked he fell to 9, but or I guess I got him at 8, excuse me. And getting him at 8 was pretty good value. Like you said, JD, if he performed that well in Chip Ganassi equipment, you could hope that he performs that much better in HMS equipment.
Yeah, I think so. So overall, is there a guy that either of you, like going back over in your head, I don't know if you remember this, but was there someone that you were looking at, you were weighing a decision on, and you thought, maybe I should take this guy, and then you pulled the trigger and went another way? Did you have any of that going on in either of your drafts?
Yeah, for me, I was really trying to trade up to get Briscoe, actually. And, when you guys were talking about a second ago, I couldn't help but to think, I had similar expectations and hopes for Custer last year when he came up, and obviously he won a race. But really, when you look at his total points in the year, he wound up being a borderline 4th, 5th round type of a driver.
Yeah,
I think he'll progress some, but they're going to be in pretty much the same equipment this year. So from my perspective, it'll be interesting to see how Briscoe compares to Custer's rookie year. I think if they have similar years, then that 3rd round value may not pan out. But I think Briscoe is much more talented.
Man, that's a good point. And that's something, we're talking about when we do the preview and stuff. But Chase Briscoe is definitely adding some pressure there, right, at Stewart-Haas, because Cole Custer, while he did win that race, and I'm sure he feels really good about that, performance-wise, yeah, I mean, he was not a top 20 performer last year, except for one race. That Kentucky race was pretty epic. That big pass was awesome, but outside of that, I mean, they're not even running that track anymore. So,
Right.
you're going to have to hope he can find it at some other, mile and a half, which there's plenty of tracks like that one. So reason to think he could. But yeah, I would think Chase Briscoe is going to definitely add some heat there for sure, because he might be able to do what we thought Cole Custer was going to do last year. That's a good point.
Yeah, and I think looking back to it, guys that got away, I traded up to get Christopher Bell, just one pick, but I traded up to take him over Kurt Busch, and so you're looking at sort of the new kind of up and comer, and Christopher Bell, who has much better equipment now, was really heralded when he came in as the next big thing. I wouldn't say he was unimpressive so far in NASCAR, but he had subpar equipment, so it's really hard to kind of measure him up. And Kurt Busch just kind of keeps on chugging. I keep expecting him to fall off at some point, and he just hasn't. So that could be a situation for me that really may not pan out, because if Bell doesn't make that progress in the new equipment, and Kurt Busch is his usual self where he can compete for a couple wins and make the chase and get up into that final 8 like he did last year, that could be a pick that really got away from me and could cost me a chance at winning a championship.
If you're listening to this going, man, these guys really take this seriously. Hell yeah, we take it seriously. This is a meeting of the minds of the champions. I mean, this is not just, we're not screwing around. We're not dicking around, to turn a phrase there. So, Ori, do you have any that you felt like got away, or did you feel like your draft kind of went the way you thought it would?
Well, I was happy to get a gift. Kevin Harvick fell into my lap at the 3rd overall pick with Drew taking Kyle Busch at 2. Kevin Harvick had 9 wins last year, absolutely dominated the series. Yes, he didn't end up in the Final 4 or winning the championship, but for Harvick to have 9 wins and fall to the 3rd pick, I know he's the oldest active Cup driver this season, and people are worried about fall off. But he's like Drew said, kind of with Kurt Busch, he's better than that. He continues to chug along. So I was going to have a tough decision between Hamlin and Truex, what I thought was going to be the 3rd pick, until Harvick fell into my lap there. Another tough decision I had to work through was a driver we talked about already. I had to make a pick between Chase Briscoe and Bubba Wallace in the 4th round. I ultimately went Chase Briscoe. I'm curious to see what Bubba does. Is that Gibbs equipment, or is it kind of reflective of Christopher Bell last year in the Levine family racing equipment? How does that go? I understand with Michael Jordan and all the sponsors they're getting that, Gibbs is going to throw all the best resources they can at making that team as competitive as they can immediately. So that was a very tough pick for me between Chase Briscoe and Bubba Wallace.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I think with that to your point, like the difference maybe between what Bubba Wallace is getting with the 23XI racing or 2311 racing, I keep calling it that, and what Levine family racing had last year. I saw that 2311 racing actually got one of the Hawkeye systems, like what NASCAR uses, which all the big teams have. Gibbs certainly has one of those. And so they were taking their cars to start like the season, like just the last few weeks, they were taking their cars over to Gibbs to have them Hawkeyed, for lack of a better term, and measured before, they take them to the track just to make sure they were all spec'd out and ready to go. And they said they wanted to actually have that system at their facility. They just couldn't get it installed in time because of COVID. But they did show a picture I just saw on Twitter today or yesterday where, yeah, they've actually done that now. They've got the system there. So I would think that helps out. I mean, it's all those little things, right? They're measuring, thousandth of an inch, trying to find an advantage. They're doing everything they can. So if you can get something set up just like what NASCAR has to test, I would think that helps put you like with the big boys, because I'm sure Stewart-Haas has that. Obviously, you would expect that Penske and Hendrick and all those guys have it, and Gibbs obviously has it. So, yeah, I think those are just some telltale signs, but it's a tough call, man. This is the fun part of our draft. And one last thing for people who may be wondering, Ori and Drew, their teams are totally different because they're in the same division. So they are fighting for a division when we have 10 people in this league. So you don't have 50 drivers. So we split it up to be 5 and 5 in each division. So that's why I have like Ryan Blaney. Drew has Ryan Blaney. I have Ross Chastain. Drew has Ross Chastain. I have Willie B. Ori has William Byron. So that's why there's some crossover there, is because we all are in different divisions, those two and me. So
Sounds like you copied off our drafts there a little bit, Bone.
yeah, I know. Well, I'll tell you, my wrestling one that I had was, I was looking at my list and I was going off of what I have, and I too was looking very much at Chase Briscoe, and I went with Tyler Reddick instead because of the experience. But I actually had Chase Briscoe up pretty high because I think he's going to do really well. I had Tyler Reddick last year, and especially the start of the year, he was pretty good. He kind of tailed off in the second half, so I'm hopeful that's not a sign of things to come, but he's my fourth driver, so we'll see. But yeah, he was right on the cusp last year of getting into the playoffs and just couldn't get it done. Too many one-off winners.
If Reddick can clean up his bad races, he had some really high finishes last year.
Yeah.
He was a bit of a roller coaster, but I mean, if he can clean up that floor of his finishes and bring that average low finish up some, you're going to be looking at a really solid take in Reddick, I think. He's easily going to start outperforming Austin Dillon. I think most people probably agree on that. Assuming their equipment is the same, Reddick shows a lot more promise, I think, than Austin Dillon really ever has. So I totally expect Reddick to be taking that sort of random spot that Dillon seems to grab in every playoffs, and the years going forward.
Yeah, well, and that's one that he did grab, right? I mean, he grabbed it last year, and Colt Custer grabbed one, William Byron getting one. Like, I think those are the things that probably kept Tyler Reddick out. But we'll see. This year, he's got to actually get one of those wins, because you're right, he was close last year. I would say, for those who do daily fantasy, Homestead, like, put Tyler Reddick in your lineup, because I think he'll be good. And one last one, because Ori, you brought this up, and it just reminded me, and I meant to bring it up earlier. You said about the guys who run dirt well. Obviously, Bristol now, there's a dirt race on the schedule. It's one out of 36 races or whatever, but it's there. I expect the Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell battle in that race to be insane. I think that's going to be a war. What do you guys think about that? Do you think Christopher Bell can get up there? I assume, like, if you have both those guys in your lineup in daily fantasy, you just have to nail your bottom half picks. But that should be an incredible battle between those two guys.
I think Bristol Dirt is going to be such a wild card. You can plan for these dirt guys like Larson and Christopher Bell that have the experience, but just, I've read a little bit about what Kurt Busch was saying about Bristol Dirt, and I think he said that there is nothing that can prepare you for it, and running these stock cars on dirt, compared to a World Outlaws car or a midget car or anything like that. So it could be a complete, cluster of a race, and who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah. We're going to add anything to that, Drew? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. It was pretty much very similar thoughts. I agree. I think it's going to be really interesting to see Larson and Bell. And they're both in new equipment this year, and they're both in the best equipment they've ever had. I think the real question is going to be, these cars are so heavy. So are the mechanics going to be sort of similar to dirt, the physics of dirt racing, the same with these vehicles that they're driving now?
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that it's really going to work out that well. I'm maybe more pessimistic than most about the Bristol Dirt Race. I'm really excited to see it. But these cars are just really not made for dirt. But I hope they prove me wrong.
Yeah, I'm not thinking they're going to be fast at all. But fast race doesn't necessarily mean a bad race. Like,
yeah,
the fastest races on the track, theoretically, you always have the bunch ups at the restrictor plate tracks. Sometimes you can have good races like that too when you have lap cars involved. And I think Bristol Dirt's going to be a lot of lappers. It's going to be a lot of, groove changing, a lot of just guys trying to figure it out on the fly. So that's why you've seen Eric Almirola at a dirt modified track, just because they're all trying to learn right now. They're all trying to get some experience. So last question for you, and I'll let you guys get out of here. I give you $100, plane ticket to Vegas or any sane state where you can legally gamble. You have one bet on who's going to win the championship this year. Who are you picking? One piece of gambling advice. Ori, go ahead.
I was going to defer to Drew while I thought about it.
I saw you raise your hand. I thought you were like, yeah, I got my guy.
I'll go Kevin Harvick. I drafted him. He should have been there last year. Everyone's worried about Father Time catching up to him, but I think for Harvick to only have one championship in his career at this point in time is a little unjust. I think he was by far the best driver last year, and Chase kind of stole one away from him in the last 3 or 4 races. So I guess if you're giving me $100 to go lay down, I'm gonna go Harvick. Plus he's on my team, so he's my guy this year.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Drew, where do you go?
Yeah, what's funny about Harvick, Ori and I talked about this before, is that nobody has owned Harvick more in our league than I have. And I had the opportunity to take him this year too, and I passed because I think age is going to catch up to him this year. I think this is really when we see his decline. I absolutely would bet against Harvick to win the championship. I don't think he's going to continue to have it in him. I think last year really drained him. He had a great performance, and it was just draining for him to not take it home. On the flip side, in a similar mindset where we're saying Harvick only has one, he probably should have more. Harvick is reaching the end of his time frame, but somebody who's still right in the middle of it is Kyle Busch, and that's who I took it to. So I think Kyle's really going to have a bounce back year. I think he was really honestly pretty upset with how last year went. They made all the changes, and I think he's going to be out to prove a point. I think Chase is going to have another really strong year with all the road courses, but when it comes down to it, I think Kyle Busch is going to kind of send a message to everybody and say, hey, I'm still the best driver in NASCAR, and it's going to stay that way for a little while until I start to age out a bit.
Yeah, I will add to that. I think that if Kyle Busch is sitting behind you with a lap or two to go at any track, that old slide job moment at Chicagoland with Kyle Larson, it'll be a lot of that. Like, there will be no give, and you will probably get moved if he thinks he can get you. Because you're right. I think he looks at last year as a lost year, and I think he's looking to make up on some time for that. So it's going to be.
Your bet's on, Bone?
Say what?
Is that who your bet's on?
My bet is on the guy that I ended up with, which is old Dennis Hamlin. Nice PJs, Hamlin. Yeah, I think he's been right there, man. He's been right there every year. He's got the equipment. He's been able to do it without practice, with practice, all that. So in similar equipment, though, I do believe in these Toyotas. I think he'll be right back there again. I do think the Gibbs cars will be very strong, to your point.
Ori said at the beginning of this that this is the league of my guys, and what did we just do? We picked our guys, each of us, to win the championship.
Absolutely right. Yeah, I think that's it. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for that. Good luck this year, and appreciate the advice as always.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
That is it for us. The next time you hear us talking to you on the Stagger podcast, we'll have a Daytona 500 in the bag. We will talk about it all next week. Thank you guys for listening. As always, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at Stagger Podcast. Till then, stay safe and stay staggered.